My mom ended up using my inheritance to pay for my brother's wedding. You'll understand when you have kids, she told me, like that made it okay. I didn't argue right then, I just walked away. But once the lawyer got involved, I realized that losing my dad was only the beginning of what would become one of the toughest chapters of my life. Dad was the quiet backbone of our family. The kind of man who never made a fuss but carried all the weight anyway. He worked hard, provided for us without complaint, and had this steady calm about him. He didn't need to say much to make a point. When he passed, I felt completely unmoored, like the ground had shifted under me. The one small comfort I held onto was knowing he'd left behind a will. He was always thoughtful with money, always planning ahead so my mom, my younger brother, and I would be looked after when he was gone. I didn't expect a fortune or anything grand, but I knew my dad had set aside something for me. It was his way of making sure I'd be alright, even when he couldn't be there himself. Just like he always did when he was alive. The first time I sensed something wasn't right came a few weeks after the funeral. Mom called me out of the blue. Her voice was unusually upbeat considering everything we'd just gone through. "You don't have to worry about a thing," she said. "Your father took care of everything." Then she added, "I'm handling all the paperwork." That set off a little alarm in my head. Dad and I had talked about his will before. He wanted me to be involved when the time came. But suddenly, my mom was saying she had it all under control. I didn't question her right away. I was still in the thick of grief, barely keeping it together. But then a few days later, something happened that hit me like a punch to the gut. I had stopped by my parents' house to check in on Mom. That's when I overheard her talking to my younger brother, Ethan. "Don't worry about the cost," she said. "We've got the money now. Your wedding is going to be perfect." I froze right there in the hallway. Ethan's wedding? Sure, he and his fiancée had been dreaming up this big, over-the-top celebration, way beyond what either of them could afford. But where was the money coming from? That sick, sinking feeling settled in my stomach. I didn't want to jump to conclusions, but I had to ask. So I stepped into the room and tried to keep my voice calm. "Mom," I said carefully, "what money are you talking about?" For just a split second, something flickered in her eyes. Then she put on that same warm smile I'd known all my life. "Oh, sweetheart, don't worry about it. I'm just helping your brother out." "With what?" I asked, my voice coming out sharper than I meant it to. She let out a sigh, like I was being unreasonable. "With his wedding, of course. You'll understand when you have kids." The room went dead silent. I felt something inside me crack open, but I didn't explode. Not then. I just turned around and walked out, trying to keep my anger from boiling over. Deep down, I already knew what I had to do. That night, I barely slept. My mother's words kept bouncing around in my head like an echo I couldn't shut off. "You'll understand when you have kids." It wasn't just dismissive, it felt like a slap in the face. Like I was some clueless child who didn't get the importance of family. But this wasn't a noble sacrifice. This was straight-up theft. The next morning, I went straight to see my dad's lawyer, Mr. Jensen. He was an old family friend, someone I'd known since I was a kid. The moment I stepped into his office, he looked up from his desk and frowned. "I was wondering when you'd come," he said. That stopped me cold. "What do you mean?" I asked. He rubbed his temples and let out a tired sigh. "Your mother came in a few weeks ago, right after the funeral. She said she wanted to handle the will privately. Told me you and Ethan didn't need to be involved." I felt a cold pressure settle in my chest. "And you just went along with it?" Jensen shook his head. "No, I told her that wasn't how it worked. Your father's instructions were clear. Everything was to be split equally between you and Ethan, with certain protections in place." I leaned forward. "So what happened?" He hesitated, then said, "She brought in what she claimed was an updated will." I just stared at him. "What?" He gave a grim nod and slid a folder across the desk toward me. "This is what she submitted. Looks official on the surface, but something about it felt off." I opened it. At first glance, the document looked legitimate. The wording sounded like Dad, the signatures were all there. But when I got to the inheritance section, my heart dropped. Everything had been left to my mother. Not shared with Ethan and me. Not even a token amount for me. Every last cent, hers. My hands clenched into fists. This can't be real, I said, trying to stay calm. Jensen nodded. That was my thought too. But I can't challenge it without your go-ahead. He looked me straight in the eye. Are you ready to take this on? I thought about everything. The way my mom brushed me off, how she used Dad's money to throw Ethan a fairy tale wedding while cutting me out completely. I looked back at him and said, yeah. Let's do it. I didn't head home right away. I just drove aimlessly for a while, trying to get my head on straight, but it didn't help. My hands were still gripping the wheel tight, and my thoughts were all tangled up. I had wanted to believe I was overreacting. That maybe Mom had moved things around a little, made some questionable calls, but nothing underhanded. But rewriting Dad's will? That wasn't a mistake. That was fraud. By the time I pulled into my parents' driveway, my blood was boiling. I didn't even bother knocking. I walked right in. Mom was in the kitchen humming to herself, flipping through a stack of wedding invitations. Ethan was sitting at the dining table, scrolling on his phone like it was just another day. Neither of them looked the least bit ashamed. I stared at my mom and said, so, want to tell me about this new will? She didn't flinch. Just looked up at me with that same irritatingly calm expression. Oh, honey. You talked to Mr. Jensen, didn't you? I dropped the folder on the table. Yeah. I did. Ethan didn't even look up. What's the big deal, he muttered. I spun toward him. The big deal is that Dad left something for all of us. For you. For me. For Mom. And Mom decided I didn't deserve any of it. For the first time, Mom's smile faltered just a little. I didn't erase you, she said as she set down one of the invitations. I made a judgment call. A judgment call? I repeated, stunned. She let out a tired breath. Your father always wanted the family taken care of. Ethan's starting a life, getting married, buying a house. And I'm not part of this family? I snapped. She gave me that same condescending tone again. Sweetheart, one day you'll understand. When you have kids of your own. Parents have to make hard choices sometimes. I let out a bitter laugh. No. What you did wasn't a hard choice. It was a crime. Her eyes narrowed. Don't be dramatic. I turned to Ethan. He hadn't moved an inch. And you're just okay with this? He shrugged like it was nothing. Mom said you wouldn't mind. I blinked at him. Wouldn't mind? He finally set his phone down and rolled his eyes. Come on, man. I'm getting married. I've got responsibilities now. I deserve this. Something inside me snapped. You deserve it? Dad worked his entire life to make sure we'd both be all right. And you think you're owed my share just because you're getting married? Ethan scoffed. It's just money. You'll be fine. I looked back at my mom, my voice cold and steady. You forged legal documents. You took what Dad left for me. You stole from me. And you think I'm just going to let that go? For the first time, I saw something shift in her eyes. Maybe fear. Maybe guilt. I didn't steal anything, she said carefully. I just redirected it where it was needed. I gave her a slow nod. Right. Sure you did. So, you won't mind explaining all that to my lawyer, right? That shut her up real fast. She went pale like she'd seen a ghost, and Ethan sat up straighter, blinking like he wasn't sure he'd heard me right. Wait, hold on. A lawyer, he asked, his voice climbing. I grabbed the folder and turned toward the door. I'm done talking, I said flatly. You'll be hearing from him soon. As I stepped outside, I heard her voice chase after me, tight, panicked. Wait. Let's just talk about this. But I didn't stop. Because really, what else was there to say? I barely made it to my car before my phone lit up. First it was her. Then Ethan. Then her again. I let every call ring out. They weren't blowing up my phone because they felt bad. They were panicking because they got caught. By the time I walked into Mr. Jensen's office, I wasn't just upset anymore, I was laser-focused. I wasn't there to vent or get advice. I came to fight. Jensen didn't waste a second. As soon as I sat down, he handed me a cup of coffee and got right to it. I did a little digging after you left, he said. And I found something interesting. I leaned in, heart thudding. What did you find? He turned his monitor toward me. Your dad's original will? It was filed correctly. It lists you and Ethan as equal beneficiaries. I blinked. But the new one? Riddled with red flags, he said. I narrowed my eyes. Like what? He pointed at the screen. First, the signature. It looks a lot like your dad's writing, but it's not quite right. We can get a forensic analyst to take a look and tell us for sure if it's forged. I felt a chill crawl up my back. Second, Jensen went on, the notary who signed off on this? They've been under investigation before. Fraud related. Odds are, your mother found someone willing to play dirty. I let out a long breath. So she knew exactly what she was doing. He nodded, face grim. This wasn't some minor edit. She rewrote the whole thing, cut you out completely and gave everything to herself. That's fraud. If we prove it, she won't just lose the money. She could face criminal charges. That hit hard. I'd walked in ready to fight for what was mine, but I hadn't really let it sink in just how serious this was. This wasn't just about inheritance. This could wreck her life. Then Jensen leaned back, looking me dead in the eye. You ready for that? I hesitated. I mean, yeah, I wanted justice, but this was my mom. She raised me. Even with all the dysfunction, even after this, there was still a tiny piece of me that flinched at the thought of her in handcuffs. And I already knew how she'd twist the whole thing. I was only trying to help the family. How could my own son do this to me? I'm your mother. I gripped the edge of the desk, swallowing the lump in my throat. Yeah, I said, barely above a whisper. I'm ready. Jensen gave a sharp nod. No more delays. He pulled out a thick stack of paperwork and slid it toward me. First step is the formal notice. This demands she return your share and nullifies the fake will. If she refuses, we move to court. I didn't even blink. I picked up the pen and signed. That was it. The point of no return. The next morning, Jensen sent the notice. He made sure it was rock solid, no wiggle room, no loopholes. She had 48 hours to respond before we filed the lawsuit. Didn't take long for the backlash to roll in. My phone started lighting up that same afternoon. Mom, how could you do this to your own mother? Mom, I was just trying to do what's best for the family. Mom, please, talk to me before you make a huge mistake. Then Ethan jumped in. Ethan, dude, a lawyer? Seriously? Ethan, you're blowing up the whole family over money. Ethan, Mom's crying right now. Hope you're happy. I let out a dry, bitter laugh. Oh, now she was crying? Not when she forged the will. Not when she robbed me blind. Only when she realized I wasn't going to let it slide. I didn't answer any of them. About an hour later, she showed up at my apartment. I opened the door and there she was, disheveled, eyes red, like she'd been practicing the perfect, devastated mom routine. Sweetheart, she began, voice thick with emotion, can we please talk? I crossed my arms. There's nothing to talk about. Her lips started to tremble. You don't have to do this. We're family. I leaned against the doorframe. Funny. You weren't thinking about family when you stole my inheritance. She winced like I'd slapped her. I didn't mean to hurt you. I shook my head. You didn't think about me at all. That's the problem. Tears welled in her eyes. You don't know what it's like to be a mother. I had to think about Ethan's future. He's married now. He'll have a family soon. He needed the money more than you. I stared at her like she'd grown another head. So, because I'm single, my future doesn't count? She pressed her hands together, pleading. I know how it looks. But I was just trying to do the right thing. If we go to court, it'll tear the whole family apart. I took a deep breath and kept my voice steady. You should have thought of that before you forged a will. Her whole expression shifted. The Terry Act vanished like a light switch had flipped. Are you really going to destroy this family over money? She snapped. I looked her straight in the eye. No. You destroyed this family the moment you faked Dad's will. Her face twisted in rage. Fine. Be selfish. But you'll regret this. I didn't flinch. "We'll see." Then I shut the door in her face. She pounded on it a few times, yelling something I didn't care enough to catch. Eventually, it went quiet. I heard her car start, then drive away. I leaned back against the door and closed my eyes. It was done. No more second thoughts. Next stop, court. The fallout started the next morning. The phone calls poured in, relatives I hadn't heard from in years. Aunts, uncles, cousins. All suddenly very interested. "Aunt Linda, sweetheart, do you really want to put your mother through this?" "Uncle Ray, look, I get that you're upset, but can't you just forgive and move on?" "Cousin Sarah, Ethan told us everything." "You're really suing your own family?" It was obvious. Mom had gotten to them first. Told them her version. Painted me as the greedy son tearing everything apart over a little cash. But I wasn't budging. I sent the same response to every single one. "Ask Mom why she changed Dad's will. Ask her why she forged my signature. Then tell me who the villain really is." Most went silent. A few sent back weak excuses. Only one, Uncle David, replied with something real. "Uncle David, I had no idea. Do what you have to do." Finally, someone who got it. But as the court date crept closer, the pressure only built. And I knew deep down I hadn't seen the worst of it yet. Because 1 week before the trial, my mother showed up at my apartment again. Only this time, she didn't come alone. Ethan came along with her, looking irritated, like he had better things to do and this was just messing with his schedule. My mother, though, had that look on her face, the one she always wore when she wanted something real bad. Desperate, but trying to hide it behind a mask of fake charm. "Let's be reasonable," she said, stretching her lips into a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "There's no need for this to end up in court." I crossed my arms, not budging an inch. "Then hand over what belongs to me." She paused, clearly not expecting that kind of pushback, then reached into her purse and pulled out a check. It wasn't even close to what was owed. Not even in the same ballpark. "This is what we can manage right now," she said, syrupy sweet. "It's a fair compromise." I glanced at the number and let out a short laugh. "You stole hundreds of thousands from me, and you think tossing me some scraps is gonna make it right?" Ethan rolled his eyes and scoffed. "Dude, you're seriously making this a bigger deal than it needs to be." I turned toward him. "Would you be saying that if someone stole your entire share?" His jaw clenched, but he didn't say a word. I shifted my focus back to my mom. "No deal," I told her. "I'm not settling." And just like that, the mask slipped. Her whole expression changed. "You're making a mistake," she snapped. "You go through with this, and you're cutting yourself off from this family forever." I held her gaze steady. "You did that when you faked Dad's will." Then I opened the door. "See you in court." She stormed out, heels clicking like gunshots. Ethan followed, muttering something under his breath as he trailed after her. As the door clicked shut behind them, something inside me clicked, too. That was the exact moment I stopped giving a damn about what they thought of me. This wasn't about family anymore. This was about making things right. This was about justice. And I was gonna get it. The courtroom was colder than I'd expected. Not just the air, but the feeling of it, sterile, distant. Any warmth or sense of family was long gone. This wasn't a family dispute anymore. It was a full-blown legal showdown. Across from me, my mother sat like some fragile old lady, doing her best impression of a misunderstood mom just trying to protect her kids. Ethan was beside her, arms folded, pouting like a kid whose toy got taken away. But all the acting in the world didn't matter. Not today. Mr. Jensen laid it all out, piece by piece. The forged signature. The crooked notary who'd been caught in past scams. The money trail showing my inheritance funneled directly into Ethan's wedding expenses. Then came the real bombshell, my father's actual will, the one they tried to erase. The judge paid close attention, nodding slowly as the truth unraveled. My mother's lawyer fumbled through some nonsense about misunderstandings and good intentions. And then, the moment I'd been waiting for. "Mrs. Carter," Jensen said, voice calm but firm. "Are you saying your son willingly gave up his inheritance?" She hesitated. "Well, not exactly." Jensen didn't let her squirm out of it. He slid a document across the table. "Then how do you explain his forged signature right here?" Silence. Her lawyer shifted in his seat, clearly uncomfortable. Ethan stared down at the table like it might save him. The judge adjusted her glasses and looked right at my mother. Mrs. Carter, do you understand that this constitutes fraud? For the first time, my mother looked rattled. I didn't take my eyes off her. She knew exactly what she had done. She'd always known. When the judge finally spoke again, her decision came down like a hammer. This court finds that the plaintiff's inheritance was unlawfully taken. The fraudulent will is hereby voided. All associated assets are to be restored immediately. My mother let out a gasp. Ethan's mouth hung open in disbelief. We won. But the damage had already been done. As I walked out of that courtroom, I knew there was no going back to how things used to be. And honestly, I was perfectly fine with that. Winning didn't feel like a party or some grand celebration. It was quiet. Still. The kind of victory that doesn't need cheering, it just needs peace. The court ordered my full inheritance returned. But she'd already burned through a big chunk of it, so she had to start liquidating. Sold her car. Cashed out part of her retirement. Eventually, she even had to sell the house she and Ethan had been living in. Ethan lost it. Called me a traitor, blew up my phone with long texts full of anger and guilt trips. Said I ruined his future. I didn't answer a single one. The same relatives who once begged me to keep the peace? They suddenly went quiet. Some cut me off entirely. Others, like Uncle David, reached out and admitted they had no clue how deep the lies ran. As for my mother? She played the poor, misunderstood victim to anyone who'd still listen. She sent me one last message. I hope you're happy. You've destroyed this family. I was only trying to do what was best. I stared at that text for a while. Then I sent one final reply. You destroyed this family the moment you chose greed over honesty. I just exposed it. And that was it. I blocked her number. Done. For the first time in forever, I felt free. The weeks after the trial were eerily calm. No more guilt trips, no more manipulation, no more noise. Just quiet. It felt strange at first. I'd been tangled up in their drama for so long, sacrificing my needs over and over to keep the peace that never really existed. Now that it was over, I had to figure out who I was without them pulling my strings. So I started fresh. Rebuilding. But not out of spite or to prove anything. I used my restored inheritance exactly how Dad would have wanted me to. Paid off debts. Saved up for a future home. Made real plans, my plans. For the first time in my life, I was finally putting myself first. And it felt damn good. What happened to them? Well, Mom had to downsize. With Dad's money gone and most of hers burned, she ended up in a much smaller apartment. She still tries to play the victim card, but folks aren't falling for it like they used to. Ethan still got married, but it wasn't the big, flashy wedding he'd dreamed of. No luxury venue, no fancy honeymoon. His fiancée's parents picked up most of the tab. Word is, he wasn't too thrilled about that. Some family members shut me out completely. And I let them. If they could turn a blind eye to something this serious just to avoid drama, then they weren't people I needed around anyway. Was it worth it? People ask me that sometimes. Was it worth going to war with my own mother? Was it worth losing my family? And my answer's always the same. I didn't lose a family. I lost people who only saw me as useful when I was quiet and convenient. I lost a mother who treated me like an afterthought. A brother who thought he was entitled to what was mine. What I gained was self-respect. A backbone. A life I could finally call my own. And if my dad were still here, I know without a doubt he'd be proud of me. Because I stood up for what was right, even when no one else did. I honored his wishes when everyone else tried to bury them. And in the end, that's the only thing that really matters.